Hey guys, how you doing? Martine Lopez here from the Curiosity Theory. Excited to have another show. Tonight's show is called The Journey to Self-Love from a Woman's Perspective. So I have very, very little knowledge about this. So what the question I have is as people, particularly women, like what happens when you let your light shine? What happens when you accept yourself for who you are? What happens when you decide to love yourself? One of the things that happened, I've realized that, we embrace challenges more easy. The things that we want to do, the challenges in life, we embrace those challenges. So we move through those more powerfully. We become less critical of other people and people around us, including ourselves. And our life experience, I find, is more satisfying. There's a huge list of benefits. And, but on the other side, that not having this or just having a life, just living life comes with rocky, just challenges, right? So I understand my vision of self-love. Like, what's it like for a guy, like pushing through, competing, working my ass off, coming to the realization recently after 21 years of marriage, not that I was doing it wrong, but there were a lot of things that I could have done better. So self-love for me is a journey that I've been taking, but I didn't know I was taking it. But in the last year or so, I've really been deep into that journey. I'm trying to understand myself as a man. I'm trying to understand my kids more, my family, my coworkers, my friends. But tonight, we're not going to talk about that. Tonight, we're going to talk about what's it like for a woman. I'm really curious about what's it like for a woman to go through the journey of self-love. What happened? What happened that you in your life that got you to that point that you realized that you needed to maybe start liking yourself or loving yourself? What did you learn? What do you do now? Those are some of the questions asked. What do you do right now? So what do you do with this learning? And what do you teach? What is it that you have to teach? Because when we go through these journeys, we have something to teach on the other side, don't we? So I'm going to ask you to join me and three amazing women. And when I talk about amazing women, I am not holding back. This is absolutely three of the most amazing women I've spoken to in a long time. I have Lynda Sunshine West, who is a really good friend of mine. She's the speaker. She is a best-selling author. This is what I really love. She's an executive film producer. And she was the executive film producer of a movie called The Wish Man, which is the life and story of Frank Shankowitz. And if you know who Frank is, he is the founder of Make-A-Wish. Amazing woman. And one of the things that I really love about Lynda is for an entire year, back in 2015, she decided to face one fear every day. Crazy, huh? So every day she woke up in the morning saying, what am I going to face? What fear do I have that I'm going to face? So her relationship to fear is amazing. And her journey as a woman is amazing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I really encourage you to get to know everybody, that's all three of the women here, and then get to know them and then build your own relationship with them, because they're just amazing. Jessica Sanchez, she's an international multidimensional healer, a medical medium, and a speaker. She's the founder and CEO of Enlightened Circles. Now, the cool thing about Jessica, what I really like, well, there's so many things, but Jessica actually studied medicine abroad, and she has a unique understanding for the connection between Western medicine and alternative healthcare. One of the things I love about her is she understands both sides of health, the traditional Western medicine, as well as that the Eastern medicine. The Western is like, cut somebody, give them a pill. If this happens, then do this. But that whole Western, or the whole Eastern side, has a lot to do with intuition and all that stuff. So yeah, she's going to bring so much to today's conversation. Suzanne Taylor. Well, the moment I met Suzanne, I fell in love with her, and you guys will too. She's a rock star. On her website, it says, question, challenge, change, create, and grow. Wow. She's got an amazing resume on her website as well. And I wanted to talk about some of her credentials, but she's got such a huge list. I my ADD didn't let me do that. So I'm just going to, I'm going to tell you what I think is really cool is that she was a professional snowboarder. And just a minute ago, she told me that she's been surfing since she was 3 years old or something. I don't know. So let's get into the zest and the grit of the journey, a journey to self-love from a woman's perspective. How you doing, girls?
Great.
Hello.
Hi there.
Thanks for being here. I'm super excited to find out what happened to you. What did you learn? All that. And I'm going to step aside and just really just kind of be a kind of fly on the wall and direct it a little bit. But I'd like to know, and I'll start with, how about we start with Suzanne? We'll go to Jessica, and then we'll go with Lynda. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then kind of like how your journey started. And we'll try to do like 2 or 3 minutes each.
All right. It's a long and sordid tale, but I will say that I was trying to live up to my mother for years. My mother was a gorgeous Twiggy-esque supermodel looking, and I wanted a mom that looked like everybody else's mom. And I didn't understand why, at 15, my mom was 45, wearing a bikini, smoking cigarettes, living on Diet Coke to be thin. And that was my vision of what self-love was supposed to be. And I had this expectation that I was supposed to be girly, and I most certainly was not. I was very much a tomboy, very much friends with all the boys, surfing and skateboarding barefoot and BMX bike riding, and had a motorcycle hidden down the street at a friend's house. And
you had a motorcycle hidden down the street at a friend's house?
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. And my mom really didn't know what to do with me. So I had this, expectation of being like her, but I wasn't. I was more like my dad, I guess. And over the years, I realized that I had to step into being my own person and really embrace who I was. And apparently by high school, I had done that, because through this whole process, I went back to a couple of people that I knew in high school, and I said, well, what was I like? Who was I back then? And 3 of my friends said, bold, fearless, a punker, and you didn't take crap from anybody. And I was like, cool, I like that. I can use that moving forward. And I spent 20 years as a dental hygienist because I kind of thought that was the career for me. And I realized that I didn't pick it. It kind of picked me. And I turned 35 and I said, all right, it's time for me to pick what I want to be when I grow up.
That's awesome.
Here we are.
That's awesome. We're going to find out a little bit more about that. Jessica.
Hi, everybody. Martin, thanks for having us here. True honor and pleasure, because this is an amazing group of women. And you have an amazing group of followers. But definitely, my story is, my father's a physician, family physician, come from a rural place, raised, if you've seen my big fat Greek wedding, that's my family, except my big fat Hispanic wedding type of family. And so that just gives you a inner perspective. And I was awake all my life, spiritually awake. And I used to think everyone was a medium or talk to these dead people and angels and guardians and guides and fairies, and everyone was psychic and everyone did all these things. But then you start to find out, well, okay, maybe not everyone does. Or if they do, they don't realize it anymore. And so it brings you into a more, not completely introverted, but a lonelier space to be. And not full of understanding how to have that self-love that we're talking about today, because until you can really be able to embrace yourself freely, you can't really start to self-love. And so that's part of my journey and my process, where then as you get older and you start to see, okay, there is space for you to come forth, to be who you really are and who you choose to be and what you want to be. Just like Suzanne was saying, you can really start to embrace all that you are. Doesn't mean I wasn't embracing myself. I was, but because you're growing up, so you have to follow other people's wants, desires, needs for you, careers, everything else. And as you get older, we come into this much more free space to be able to embrace ourselves, who we are, what we are. And we start to do it in a much more wiser place and come from love, not just for self, but for others, and with honor and integrity and self-respect. So that's a little bit about my story, about where I came into my self-love with who I am, what I do. And, we've all had our hardships as we come along the way. So when I have my clients, whether I'm doing the medical intuitive medium part, it really does come back to that whole unconditional love for self, unconditional love for others. And that's what I love to work with people. And inspire them on their journey, on their path with their spiritual gifts as well, to kind of, now as we're all coming into this awakening shift. So that's how I correlate some of the Western medicine, especially being a MD and deciding not to practice medicine and being a medical intuitive as well. And so many times we have things that manifest within our body because we're not practicing self-love. So we have cancers that develop, we have renal issues that develop because we're not filtering things correctly. So I'm sure the lovely ladies here can talk about that all day as well, because we all know somebody who's been through it, and they were that mom, grandma, boy, like, you know, girlfriend, whoever, big sister who always took on everyone else's problems and didn't love themselves enough. And so we manifest certain things. So that's a little bit of, as I've seen this happen in women I love in my family that are close to me, and I've seen them work through this, it's been a beautiful gift as my grandmothers worked through their cancer and different things, for me to be able to say, wait a second, these are things I can shift. Just like Suzanne was talking about, and Lynda, I'm sure is going to say as well, these are things I can shift in my own life to not have to be in those same situations, yet to inspire myself, but to help others as well, because we can't help anyone else unless we help ourselves. So very happy to be here and share my self-love with the rest of y'all.
I love it. I love it. Lynda.
Awesome. You know, it's interesting because we talk about self-love, and, you know, Martine, you've been doing your show for, you know, several weeks, maybe several months now. And I've been, you know, watching, you know, some of them here and there. And I'm like, oh, that's not a topic I could do. That's not a topic I could do. And you mentioned self-love. I'm like, I'm totally into this because, you know, I came from a very abusive, volatile, alcoholic household, and everything in my household when my dad was home was, be quiet, don't say a word because somebody will get hurt, you know, and that was like my mental capacity. That's what I thought about, you know, families. And I just, you know, had a lot of negativity in my life. And then what happened, like many people, I married somebody just like my dad, you know, my very first marriage. Fortunately, I was only with him for about 2 years, 2 kids. When my son was 13 months and my daughter was 4 weeks old, I walked out on my ex-husband, and it was like the start of my life. But I still had all that baggage I'd been carrying around for 21 years, you know, and it carried with me until I was 51. In the meantime, I married, you know, I married my current husband. We've been together for 31 years, and it's been awesome. But in the meantime, like I just never loved myself, and I didn't know. Here's the thing: is I didn't know I didn't love myself until I loved myself. Like I always thought I liked a little bit about me and this and that, but really the reality is I look back on it, I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated what I was all about. You know, even though my marriage, I was happy with my husband, I wasn't happy with myself. And to come to a place of self-love took a lot of work, and it took dedication, it took commitment, and it took help from others. I couldn't do it on my own. And so, you know, I hired a life coach at age 51, and she totally helped me to put me into this place where I am today. And I met Martine in 2015 when I was facing a fear every single day. That whole year is the year I met you, Martine.
Wow,
and
I didn't know that.
I remember almost every single day of that year, because every day I was shifting, because I was making a conscious effort to face a fear every day, you know. And it's cool because during that time is when I made the most growth than I've ever made in my entire life. My entire life was in 1 year. And, you know, it was talk really quick, as it was 5 years ago. And when I was 5 years old, I ran away and I was gone for an entire week. I decided at 5 years old that I was not going to live in that household. I wasn't going to put up with that house that I was in, right? And so after a week, my mom had me come back home. And I sometimes will kick myself. Like nowadays, I'll look back and I'm like, why didn't I run away again? Why? You know, I ran away once, and when I came back home, I shut up. I stifled my voice. I didn't have a voice at all until I met that life coach who helped me to open up my voice and open up my life and change my entire, like everything I'm doing today has happened within the last 5 years. Everything, every single thing. It's been amazing.
That's awesome. I heard, I think it was Jessica said something about, you know, well, you all said something about loving yourself. And I kind of thought, like, you know, when I was young, it's like, you know, loving yourself. When I got older, it's like loving yourself. Well, that's a thing, you know, like they don't talk about it like it's a thing, like loving yourself. We just grow up. And as we grow up, whether you have a mom that looks like a model and wears a bikini at 45, or you have a father and a mother that abuse you, you know, and treat you poorly, or you have parents that are doctors, or me and my father was a contractor, and I just thought he was a mean guy, you know. And then there's like this yearning. Did you guys have the yearning inside of yourself? But you didn't have a word for it, but it was like the yearning to love yourself. But so how did that show up for you guys?
Well, I'll start first, because for me, Martine, when I heard those terms, love yourself, self-love, I was like, that's a bunch of BS. You know?
Yeah. Like, really, like, raise your hand. Did you really?
Yeah.
It's
Like,
weird.
what does that even mean? How can you love yourself? What am I supposed to hug myself? You know, like, that's what I thought self-love was, because I didn't experience love in my household. I don't remember. They might have, but I don't remember my parents ever saying I love you. Not even to the last day when they passed away. And so I didn't know what love was from others, let alone from myself. And so when I found that was a thing, like you mentioned, when I found that was a thing, I totally embraced it. And I'm still embracing it. I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know if I'll ever have it fully figured out, but I'm glad I'm on that journey of trying to figure it out.
That's really cool. I'm opening up to you.
Yeah, I want to say, like, I think as women, and I'm not being Miss Feminist or Miss Liberal over here when I say this, but culture and society, men are taught certain things, women are taught certain things. And women, we're not necessarily taught to love ourselves. We're taught to take care of everyone else. We're taught to be the mother. We're taught to be the big sister. We're taught to be that good friend. And so we really don't realize, and even in the medical field, you see this all the time. A woman will come in and she'll be like, nothing about men, not saying, I'm not getting into the pain factor, but a man will come in, he'll complain, and he'll be okay with being hospitalized a lot of times or something. A woman's like, no, give me my medication. I need to get out because I need to get home, take care of my husband and my children. And so just whatever you need to do, get me in and get me out. And it's like, no, ma'am, I'm sorry, you really need to stay here to take care of yourself, because if you don't get better, you're not going to be able to be taking care of anyone else. And that's not what we're taught. So just even right there in society, we're taught to give of ourselves, give of everything that we are in our whole essence for everyone else instead of ourselves. So it's very difficult, I think, as a female sometimes to take this concept of self-love. We're so, just like Suzanne said, we're so used to looking at skinny, beautiful women, and skinny, beautiful women. I have amazing friends, and they look at themselves in the same way with judgment and everything else. And we judge ourselves instead of saying, you know what? Thank you. I love you. This right here that I don't like, thank you. I love you. And we're not used to saying that to ourselves or to our body. We're used to giving judgment and everything else. And I used to be a little bit more, I've been a heavier woman once I started going in through puberty and everything else, and with health issues and reasons for it. And in the medical world, you know how to lose weight, you know what you need to be doing, but it's not always that easy to actually enact upon it. And it wasn't until I started appreciating myself, and I said one day, you know what? God didn't create the sun and these beautiful, amazing beaches just for beautiful men and women that can wear bikinis or whatever, right?
You actually thought that?
Yeah, because you're self-conscious. So you're self-conscious being a heavier set woman or even a skinny woman, the most beautiful model, they are self-conscious because there's so much judgment that we place on ourselves. Yeah. And then one day I said, God didn't create all of this beautiful planet and earth just for the person who looks perfect in a swimsuit edition, male or female. He didn't just create it for them. And when I started to realize that day, I said, you know what? If they don't like it, they don't have to look, but I have every right to sit here and suntan. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying I don't wear my wrap or my tankini that looks correct for my body size or things like that. But I'm just saying I came into a whole new persona and being where I could start wearing short sleeve shirts and not be afraid of wearing short sleeve shirts, because you start to enact self-love and you start to understand there's beautiful things we can embrace in this world, and we all deserve to embrace them.
So it's been a journey. It's like, you come to the awareness of something. Is this what you're saying? You came to the awareness and then you started to try out to see if, like, it's kind of like, almost like, did you try to see, like, is that okay that I do this? Knowing that it was okay and it should be okay. And then you kind of like test your water a little bit. What do you think, Suzanne? How does that work?
Well, I know I didn't have a concept when I was younger of being not myself or not liking myself, or I don't want to say confidence, but I just didn't care. I didn't care what other people thought. I had my friends, and then there was a time, and I don't know what age it was, I don't remember, but that all of a sudden my friends looked different than me, and they looked more womanly than me. And my mother said to me, I understand, and someday you will so appreciate looking younger than you are. Okay, now I do. I get it. I get it, Mom. Like, I get it. Right? But then I didn't get it. And that was the time for me that was really, really hard. Like, why don't I have boobs? Why do I look like a little 12-year-old boy and my girlfriends look like curvy 16-year-old supermodels? And I'm like, oh my God, but I'm a way better surfer. So
something's
that's
going
cool.
wrong here.
Yeah, something's wrong. And so that's the first time I felt like something was wrong with me, not just I'm different. And, then the whole boy thing started, and that presented, oh, you're not this, so I don't like you, or you're not that, so I don't like you. Well, then it becomes, oh, well, there's something wrong with me. But I never felt down about it. I just felt, oh, okay, well, I'm different.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that was a gift or whether that was something that sports and being into exercise did for me. I'm not sure, but it wasn't until 2 really bad failed marriages that I said, all right, I need to get serious about what I'm doing for me and really get to know who I am and what I want before I ever have another relationship. And I was about 27 when my second divorce happened. So 27, divorced the second time. And I'm like, all right, I got to figure this out. And that's kind of when, that conversation with my mom happened. And we had a come to Jesus moment. Like, why did you do this? And I felt like this. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, all right, I see where this is going, and I need to stay right here and focus on me and who I am and where I want to go.
Was that conversation with your mom like you thought something and then she said, well, this is kind of what I meant, or something like that?
No, we were like sitting on the beach,
Uh-huh.
having a cocktail. My parents had just retired, and they were very disappointed in me
because of the second divorce.
Oh, the first one, they loved him. Second one, didn't like him so much. And, so I was basically on vacation, visiting my parents, recovering mentally. Like I needed 2 weeks on the beach. And my mom said, well, that's nobody's going to want to marry you now. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Third marriages have a way higher success rate than second. So let's not curse the third one before we even go there. And she laughed.
I know my stats.
I know my stats. I got research right in here all the time.
I got YouTube.
And she just said, oh, okay, touche. And just take your time the next time. So I was single for 12 years before I ventured down the serious relationship path again. And I think that conversation with my mom, and I said, your example that you set for me was cigarettes and Diet Coke and being skinny, and that was being happy. And she said, no, I never said that. I said, yeah, but that's who you were. So I saw who you were, and I interpreted that that's what happy, that's what popular, that's what pretty, that's what I have to do. And I rebelled against that. And she said, no, you just ate healthy. And I didn't. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is a start. And we really had that moment where it was like, oh, she didn't mean any of that. And oh, she did love me for who I was. She just wanted me to be popular. So that was her way of being popular.
There were things that sounds to me like there's things like as parents that we have that we want for our children.
Yeah.
And there are things that we prize as things that we enjoy.
Yeah.
And the kids are going to like what they like. And when they, seems like to me, when they like the things that we like, it kind of brings us a little bit more pride and joy and maybe personal approval.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And
Yeah.
I think that personal approval I got from my dad because he showed me so much. I mean, I'm so much like him.
And you just kind of took it all in, did you?
Yeah.
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 That's interesting because when I have a 20-year-old and I'm going through a divorce right now, and my 20-year-old, because I raised my children kind of talking and telling them what's going on. And so they know how my father was. And so my 20-year-old doesn't want to be like me because I'm like my father, like that's kind of like that's kind of like what's been said, and it's really interesting how we look at our parents or look at some of the figures in our life and say, we don't want to be like those people, as though we know what those people are like.
Yeah, we really don't. And I was lucky enough to be able to have a couple conversations with my parents before they passed that really, I don't know, I'm getting like the feeling that I'm meant to share this for somebody, whoever it is. Yeah. But to have those conversations before you lose those people, it was really helpful for me to when my mother passed suddenly, we were good. We were clear. We were on the same page, and any of those misunderstandings or I thought she felt this way or, oh, I was supposed to be like this were gone. So it felt it not that it was easy to lose your parents, but it's different to lose them when you've had the conversation.
Yeah.
No, I think that what you're touching on is a really important part of also the self-love.
Yeah.
In order for us sometimes to love ourselves, we have to be able to clear and cleanse that energy, transmute, transform that energy, cut those cords. There's so many different words we can only use, right, to talk about it. But once we can come to peace with certain things that happen, and a lot of it, remember, is our perception as well.
Yes.
It's our perception. Like you were saying, that wasn't your mom's intention, but it was what you thought maybe. And me in my own life, my mom, my dad, I'm going through a divorce right now as well myself. Whatever's happening, sometimes it's from our perception. And it doesn't mean, but like for me, in my case, I had found my self-love prior to getting divorced. And we were married now 2.5 years. And I had found who and what I was. But yet again, I went into a cycle of giving. And like you said, I think that you were touching on something prior as well, that we need to observe where we're at and keep those boundaries as well to honor it. But myself giving that unconditional love throughout my marriage and even now through the ending has allowed me to maintain my self-love and even grow it to new levels and new vibrations. So that's a big thing, I think, is once we do it, we can honor ourselves at new levels, new vibrations. And when we clear and cleanse that negative energy and we transmute and transform that energy, and we do it with forgiveness and unconditional love, that gives us all that freedom to continue in such a happy format and such a peaceful format to whatever we're doing. Right here, all four of us are doing something with others, right? We're like doing coaching lessons, you're doing your show and bringing all this stuff forward, but we really can't do that until we start to release the negativity. Otherwise, we're just holding the same stories, holding the same cycles, and we just can't move forward. We're going to stay stuck. So that's one thing that I had seen early on in my life. It's just, I think it's harder when you're younger to try to change those stories because you're kind of stuck by parents or school or certain things in society. But now, because we're having a huge awakening, I do believe it's a lot easier for a lot of the youth to start to embrace their truth and embrace their self-love and self-worth, because a lot of us are kind of ascending in vibrational levels and whatever you want to call it, because I know we use that words in the spiritual community a lot.
Yeah.
But as we rise in our vibrational levels, we're really getting more open-minded as older people to help the younger people embrace themselves and what they are and who they are. Oh, you're gifted. You see ghosts. I see dead people. Yeah. Oh, well, okay. Maybe you really do. Instead of like, they're crazy, you know,
Yeah.
then you made to think you're crazy, but it's your perception that they think you're crazy. But instead, maybe they were projecting because they had these things in the past, but they were taught to look down upon, like they were looked down upon. So they're actually projecting upon you, not that they really think you're crazy or that there's something wrong with it. It's their fears and their anxieties, and we perceive something as that. So we kind of let it dim our light a little bit. But the beautiful part is we're all coming to a new light, a new vibration. And I love that you're doing your show, because you're bringing these things forward. You're bringing these things forward to make it more open for everyone else.
There's so many conversations out there. There's so many different things to talk about. And for me, I enjoy curiosity to find out different perspectives. Like what you guys are saying, you girls are saying, they're thoughts that I may have had, but not constructed the way you guys say them. So, what I love is that when different people talk about the subject and everybody says what their perspective is. And I love, and I just had to hear what's it like for a woman, because I have a lot of sadness and a lot of pain, ending a 21-year marriage, almost 22 years, and dealing with, what I could say, destroying a family and all that, in-laws and all that stuff. And that's really, really painful. And like, how do you maintain? So I'm going to ask questions, and if you want to respond to me, and I'd say give me coaching, but I'm willing to be like the person that you can talk to, and be the be kind of like the board of that. And then if you have something to say about that, I'm totally open to hearing that. And like you said, Suzanne, that maybe that somebody needs to hear that. So going through the 22 years, the 21 years, and then saying, okay, I'm going to go do this other thing. And then looking back and going, God, I'm really, this is a horrible thing. I've cried. I've done all this stuff that you do. And I probably still will continue to do that. I don't know how to I have no idea how to deal with what I'm going through. And the only thing I'm doing is feeling what the feelings are. And not trying to think through the feelings. You know what I mean? It's like try to figure out what I'm feeling. I'm just feeling the feelings.
Yeah. Well, I think that's super important, to be with the feelings. And I know in my experience, my personal experience, it's different, I guess, with client experiences, but my personal experience is when I try to stuff, and not feel, that's when I mess stuff up. That's when I don't feel well, or that's like Jessica said, that's when, something will act up in my body, like my neck or my back or my hip, or my, there's something that hurts. Yeah. And by allowing yourself to feel, and sometimes you're only feeling on paper, I think part of the self-love journey for me through my divorces was journaling. And then after the process was over, and I felt better, or I felt out of that phase, I would rip the pages, or I would burn the pages and release all of that emotion that was on the paper. So that was my way of releasing the emotion. And of course, energy work and essential oils and meditation and my own unique combination of that, and exercise, and just getting myself back to me.
Not the basics, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's always the fundamentals.
It's really the fundamentals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lynda, how did you work through that? It fascinates me. The year of fears, that fascinates me.
Oh, I want to hear more.
That happened, and what you now do as a result of that.
Well, I'll share how that even came about is, it was in 2014 when I hired my life coach, and working with her on a weekly basis. Every week I was changing. And what I have worked with her from August until the end of November in 2014. And I had changed so much, and I got addicted. Like, I got addicted to change. I got addicted to
Oh, I just
learning
got
more about yeah, like learning it more about, like, who is Lynda? What am I here for? What's my purpose? Because I remember driving to work one day and I was just like, God, I have no purpose here. Like, why am I even here? This planet is ridiculous. Like, I was just, going through all these thoughts. And then I found this life coach. And so I worked with her for those 5 months and till the end of November. And so all of December, I was by myself. Like, I was trying to take all the things she had taught me and keep moving forward with it. And I realized it was January 1st of 2015. I woke up and I said, I got to do something different this year because I'm on fire. Like, I'm feeling good about myself, about who I am. I'm learning so many different things. And like, I learned one thing I learned that I thought was really, really important for me was that I realized that you cannot be authentic if you don't know who you are. And so it took me actually discovering who I am through lots of exercises that she gave me. And once I learned that, now I realized I had to live my life authentically because I am me. And so that's the most common thing I hear about me is that you're so authentic, which is kind of cool because it validates that all that work that I've done on myself has helped.
Yeah.
So when I woke up that morning, January 1st, I'm like, I know what? I've got a lot of fears. I'm going to face a fear every single day this year. And
Can you imagine that?
No.
It wasn't a New Year's resolution.
No, because I got really scary ones left.
I got some big
I faced all the easy ones.
Yeah, that's
might include planes and jumping out of them. And
well, the thing, Suzanne, what's scary to you might not be scary to me, and what's scary to me might not be scary to you. So
Yep.
all of the fears that I face, not a single one cost me a dime. Not a single one. I didn't jump out of any airplanes. I didn't do bungee jumping. I didn't eat bugs. It wasn't like that. My fears were so deep rooted inside of my soul of just talking to people, having a conversation.
What do you mean? Like, what you're saying that, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about talking to people. What does that mean? What does that?
Oh my, yeah, just literally just talking to people. Like, having my own business, I had to go to networking events because they said that's what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
Terrified. I would literally drive in my car on the way to the networking event and talk myself out of it. I would sit in the parking lot. I remember one time in particular, I sat in the parking lot and I talked about to myself how I needed to go in there for an entire hour. And then I just left. Like, I never went inside. So scared to have a conversation with a human being because my fear, my biggest fear was judgment. And it stemmed from my childhood. So much judgment in my family. And it lived with me for decades. And that was my biggest fear. I probably faced that one about half of the time during that entire year in different ways. So one morning I woke up. So here's what would happen. I'd wake up every single morning and I asked myself the question, what scares me? That was it. And I would lay in bed and I would wait until the answer came. Sometimes it was immediate and sometimes it was 5 or 10 minutes, and whatever that fear was, I had to do it that day. So when I met Martine, for example, in 2015, during my year of fears, it was March. I remember it was March of 2015. And like, he was the DJ at this event called Secret Knock. And my fear that day was to talk to a stranger. Well, Martine was the DJ. I'm a musician. So it made it like an easier breakthrough for me. And I walked up to him and I actually talked to him. I was terrified, Martine. You might not know that.
I have no idea,
inside, I was terrified. And so it doesn't matter what people see of us, like the perceptions that they see of us, because really what it's all about, like your mother, right? She had her own perception of herself and you had your perception of her. So many people have had perception of me a strong person, of, a person who puts themselves out there. That's because I have done a lot of work to get there, that I don't look scared anymore. That's really all it is. I'm still scared, but I do it now.
So so good.
I love that you admit
so
that
good.
Scared. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Suzanne.
No, I was just going to say it's amazing that you conquered that. I mean,
oh my gosh,
most people say that they would rather be in the casket rather than give the eulogy. So that's a huge, I don't understand that one because I love entertaining a group of people. But that's, for me, that wouldn't be hard because I pick up strangers all the time.
It's like, where do I stand, right?
Yeah.
Where's the mic? Where do I stand?
But
oh my God. Yeah.
there's other things that, owning a business was scary for me in the beginning. Putting yourself out there on video was scary to me in the beginning. Asking people for money. Wow, that was a big one. That took lots of work to get past that one. So now the fears that I have left are all physical things, scared of spiders and scared of, certain snakes and
that's what guys
heights
are for,
and
you guys need to stay scared.
Yeah.
So we can come to the rescue.
Yeah.
Just let me know if there's one back there.
Yeah. I'm like looking at the ground back there.
That's right. Otherwise, we have no value.
Yeah. Well, you said that. You said that. We did not.
I'm just playing. What do you think, Jessica? What's your take on this?
Well, I was going to say, I think it's important that you're bringing up the man's perspective, though, because a lot of times I know, like, I work with men and women with what I do. And a lot of times it's the same. We just have different ways of communicating it. We have different, especially the social concepts weigh so heavily on our brains. We let that be something that oppresses us. It's the way that we start to perceive it. And so it really does affect our self-love, even as men. And it's very important as women that we start to understand that for men. Because why do I say that as well? Because sometimes women can be so hard on you guys. We can be so hard on you guys. And it's not fair. Now, I was raised more in a man's world. It was myself and my sister. Our female cousin was way older and the other female cousin was way younger. Everyone else was guys, brothers. My dad would be with encyclopedias every night. He was an engineer before he became a doctor. So very scientific, logistical kind of thinker.
Yeah.
But I would see women sometimes be so hard on men. And I'd be like, why are they being so hard on them? But I got this like little value of being able to look at things from both perspectives. I'm not saying I'm all man because I'm not, right? We're not. So we still don't see it all from your point of view, just like even men who are really raised in a feminine world don't always see everything from a woman's point of view. But we really can be hard on you guys sometimes. And when we can really understand the weight that men go through and the fact that they feel a lot of the same things we feel, they just have a different way of communicating it. Then we can start to understand it. And then we're not so hard on them, which we're hard on ourselves, vice versa. You guys start to get hard on yourselves because we're hard on you. And so we all start to place more and more judgment, more and more things, and we start to not love ourselves as much. We start to have this guilt or think like, well, I'm not doing things right, and maybe I'm not making them happy, and I can't do anything to make them happy. So we have this turmoil within ourselves because we're placing that there. So I think it really is important for us to just time to take ourselves out of ourselves, put ourselves in that other person's shoes, try to understand their perspective. And I've noticed that also embodies my self-love more, because when I can understand something from someone else's perspective, and I'm empathic. So being an empath, like Suzanne was sharing something with me and I was ready to cry. Somebody else told me something today and I'm like, oh, and I'm feeling their emotions. Or Lynda was saying some of her story earlier and I can almost be there. But we're all empathic in certain ways, right? Some more than others. But when I can see something from someone else's perspective, I can come with forgiveness, understanding, and love. And then even if we don't tell them that or we don't see that person again, we can start to say, wait, this is why they were how they were. My mom was this way because of this in her life. And then we start to move into these parallels of our being, and we start to move into our emotional body, our spiritual body, and not having everything. We can balance and align things a lot easier, and we can take care of things right now in this moment without awareness that's generations past and generations forward and on different parallel timelines, and bring everything to a much more unified, peaceful place. I know it sounds a little crazy, but I see.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It only sounds crazy if you don't understand you. Well, I wanted to touch on that because what I think you said that was extremely important. And that's that, coming from other people's perspective, or maybe like we hear the saying, put yourself in my shoes.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to walk in my shoes, those kinds of sayings, right? Well, it was interesting because when Suzanne mentioned that she connected with her mother before her mother passed away, I didn't do that because I was so freaking pig-headed, and I was so certain that my parents were so wrong for so many decades that I never connected with them. So I connected with my parents after they passed. But I will share this, is that when my mom passed away, it was at our house, that I grew up in. We were in the house, and I was there with my mom when she passed away. And it was, I sometimes feel weird admitting this, but the truth is the truth. I felt like 10,000 pounds was lifted off of my shoulders in that very moment, because I had lived my life for my mom. My mom took the brunt of my dad's behaviors, but as a guilty child, I was like, I was the fault. Like, I always felt like I was the reason mom took all that punishment, And so when she passed away, it was like everything was just lifted. The burden was lifted. And that was when I started to heal, was after she passed. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I could have done it while she was alive, but I just don't think I was mentally in the mental capacity to be able to do it when she was alive.
I really appreciate your honesty, girls.
Yeah.
It's amazing the level of vulnerability and honesty of what you guys are sharing. And it's really very personal stuff. I have a question. It kind of came out of what Jessica was saying. And so there's a thing that was said to me, Yvette said to me, she says, I don't make you happy, and I can't do anything to make you happy. Like, what's that's a thing, I mean, what's that like for you? Like, do you guys experience that with people? Is that?
No,
I don't.
No.
I experience them saying it. Because I am where I am, and because we've done our work and we're secure with who we are, I don't experience me projecting that or saying that myself. I experience other people saying it, and I understand from where I stand that it's because of them. It's their own internal conflict.
So talk about
and
that.
I'm not putting blame or guilt. Yeah. When I say this, I'm not putting blame or guilt on her. I'm saying we all have our own things we have to deal with. We have our own issues. There's certain things I was very secure with since a little girl, and there's other things I wasn't, right? And then you come into self-love, and that's what life is. Life is a journey and a process, but we're supposed to be working through these things. That's why we're still alive, so we can continue on this soul journey, right? But when you hear things from that a lot of time from other people, it's their own internal turmoil and conflict because of maybe the way they were raised. They might have felt a lot of pressure to always please take care of something else. And remember this, we all have our own faults in it sometimes on both sides. And when there's not open communication, like the dialogue we're having right now with honesty, integrity, and let's agree to disagree if we want to, but let's have a conversation with peace, love, and light, right? Let's come at it from a peaceful plane. And even if we get a little bit escalated, let's say, okay, let's just breathe and bring it back down. And when you're not used to doing that, you don't communicate, then you're not sharing that with that other person, what you feel or don't feel. So later, maybe she felt you weren't communicating on your end, your feelings, your thoughts. And as men, you guys are taught to go internal and deal with it because you're supposed to be, like you said, you're supposed to come rescue us. And,
or fix it.
Just for spiders and snakes. That's it.
Yeah, just fix it.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, and finances, especially finances. You guys have a big, heavy burden. Men in particular in the sociological world have a big fear, and you feel like you got to be that financial person as well. And so you guys go internal and don't communicate with us. And that's okay, because you're not even taught to communicate with other men that way.
Yeah.
And so when there's lack of communication, it takes the breakdown between both, I believe. So it's like, well, I can't even do anything to please. It's not we're not pleasing you. We just don't know we are because maybe you didn't communicate it, and vice versa. We're not giving you those affirmations that work for you. We're not giving you that soul language or love language that works for you to communicate with you. And we don't know how unless you educate us, vice versa. We can't really be that judgmental on you either and put that on you when I haven't shared with you how to speak with me or talk to me that way. But a lot of times those are their insecurities, their problems, their lack of self-love that they're still working through, and they don't know how to say that.
Yeah.
I guess what I like to say, that's really good there. Well, I remember the day, it was probably about 15 years ago. My husband and I had been together for already about 16 years or so. And he said to me, "You don't need me anymore." So he wanted, not that he wanted to end the relationship, but he wanted to talk about ending the relationship. And I said, "You're right. I don't need you anymore. I want you."
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I like that
Isn't
one.
being wanted better than being needed? And he said no. So it was
Oh,
interesting. Well, because it was
I
his. That's
understand
where
the
he
choice.
was.
One
Like,
of them's a choice.
yeah.
One of them's kind of like a victim. There's like one of them kind of like leans toward victimhood, and the other one leans toward choice.
well, no, because we
That's how
talked
I
about
see
it.
it. That's how I
Yeah,
see it.
so I'll share with you how the conversation went, if that's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
Is that so he said, "No, I need to be needed. He needs
Mhm.
to be needed." And so what I said is that I no longer need you, so you need to find somebody else who needs you.
Mm.
So he went out and found, actually, he's a musician. He teaches, Martine knows he teaches music. And so he went out and he found some young boys that wanted to learn how to play guitar. And he went out and he taught them guitar 2 or 3 days a week. And he was getting that need met. Yes, awesome. Martine's got his bass guitar. Yep. I play bass guitar too. But so the point I'm making there is that sometimes we don't feel that need for the person, and that's okay. We don't have to. We just need to help them find something else that can fill that need. So the relationship, here we are 15 years later, we're still together because he found a need somewhere else. And then when those boys grew up, he found some other young, like 17-year-old kids that like to learn how to play bass guitar. So that's what he's doing to fill that need. I no longer have to fill a need for him anymore, but he wants to be with me and I want to be with him. And it's just completely
I
different.
love that.
I love that evolution of a relationship where
Yeah.
you kind of like, it's kind of like peeling an onion, where this way that we used to relate to each other is no longer that way. And it's kind of like how we do it with our friends or ourselves. That's really, I think, what we're talking about, the journey to self-love. There's always deeper layers of that, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really cool.
Well, and we're ever growing. So we're always learning how to love ourselves more and by loving others unconditionally. Like so many men and women, we feel like we're all talking about divorce right now. We're talking about different things. In generalities, those are looked at as not being successful. Those are looked at as a bad thing. But when you're giving unconditional love to those relationships, when you can go with forgiveness to those relationships, actually, they were one of the most beautiful gifts you had in your life, because it's allowing you to see yourself, know yourself in whole new ways, and know somebody else's heart and soul in a whole new way.
Absolutely.
And you just grow with more self-love. And because you start to grow with love for others, just like, each one of us here, we're passing that on to our past partner so that they can grow. That's what we want. We want everyone's soul to just grow with love and joy, because that's just what makes the world better. I know I sound like little Miss Kumbaya over here, but really that is what makes the world better, right? If we respect others, if we love others the way we're treated. Exactly. It doesn't matter that you didn't get treated the way you deserve to be treated. You could have been maltreated in a relationship. You could have been maltreated in life, in school or something. Lynda was very honest with us about her past history, that's traumatic. We would think no one should ever have to go through that. That's one of those things you say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." But at the same time, everything that we go through and we can conquer and we can come through it, we pass that love on to others. And when we can do it with forgiveness, it makes all of us the stronger and the better. So we change that cycle. We change that energy for everyone.
I love it.
And that happens when we turn ourselves from a victim to a victor, right? Because I spent decades blaming my past for my life, right? But now I thank my past, and I'm so grateful for all of those things that happened, because I can relate to people on that level that need me in their life to help them see that you don't have to always be stuck there. You can come out of that.
Suzanne, you said absolutely. I want to kind of hear what that absolutely meant. Like,
well, having been married twice before the age of, let's see, first marriage at 22, second at 24, and divorced the second time at 27, was very shocking for my family. I will say, I was always the nice girl, and I use humor to make light of it. And that's how it was back then. I was kind of the black sheep of the family, like, oh, look what she's doing. Oh my God, and it was the right path for me. And in order to make everyone else feel comfortable, I would make a joke of it. I would say, well, at least I've, only slept with the guys I've married, ha ha ha, or, I would deflect until I did that inner work and realized, and it took from like 27 to about 35 of really diving into who I am, what do I want, making that list of that future partner, but also who am I? Because in that first relationship, and do we lose Martine?
He was frozen while you were speaking,
Oh, okay.
and he's gone, but I see we're still
still
going
here.
on Facebook.
Okay,
We're still here.
So I think with that first relationship, I was mousy. I never said anything. I was young, and he was my high school boyfriend, and it was just kind of like, oh, whatever, I'll do it. Oh, you want to get engaged? Okay. Oh, you want to get married? Okay. Oh, my parents love you. Oh, this is gonna be great. I'll buy a dress and I'll have bridesmaids and we'll do a honeymoon. And I got home and I was like, what did I just do? And you get so caught up in it. And we were honest enough. We had a conversation about it. And then the second one, the second marriage, I jumped right into. And he didn't have a job. He was much younger than me and kind of looked like Brad Pitt. So he asked me to marry him. And I was like, oh my God, yes.
Brad Pitt asked you to marry him, right?
Yeah, I was in.
I'd do it.
And so in both of those relationships, I was the breadwinner. I was kind of, or the more breadwinner, I should say. And I made all the decisions. I owned the house before them, and they just moved in with me. So I was always in control. I could leave whenever I wanted. I could kick you out if I wanted. Like, it was always this underlying need for me to have a plan B or C and a D and an E and an F just in case this didn't work out. And until I worked on what I actually want and realized that no other person was going to make me happy, I had to make me happy. I had to be happy with me. And then 3 months later, somebody said to me, like, I got to a point where I was like, I'm good. I'm not going to date anybody. I got a dog. I got a puppy. I'm like, we're cool. Own my own house. I'm working and I'm doing life, great friends. And somebody said, I have a guy for you to meet. And I was like, no, I want no parts of it. And she said, well, I worked at a dentist's office then. And she said, well, he's coming in next week for an appointment. And I put him with you. And I'm like, no, put him with the other hygienist. I don't want any parts of that. Plus, I was told I wasn't allowed to date any more patients, because then they never come back. Once you go out with the hygienist.
Bad for business.
It's bad for business.
Bottom line.
And I worked there for 15 years, single. So my boss was like, look,
perfect.
We have to have a little talk about you dating patients because, they never come back. So
they should hire you for the other dentist down the street. Then,
Yes, I suggested that, so I got fixed up with my husband and I stood him up for our first date by accident. And he forgave me and we went to lunch the next day. And he asked me 3 questions that I will never forget that no guy on a date had ever asked. What was your childhood like? And were you happy as a kid? Like, how did you grow up? What was it like where you lived? Because he was from another state. And then he said, are you still friends with anybody you were friends with when you were a kid? And I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Some good questions, huh?
Yeah. And that continued.
He still does that?
No, not now.
Okay.
No.
He knows it all.
No, he knows it all now.
He knows.
And if he doesn't know, I tell him or write it down. But then it was like for the first time, somebody wanted to get to know me. And because I knew myself, because I knew my likes and my dislikes and what I wanted and what I wanted my future to look like, and that I really liked me, I was able to answer the questions and ask other ones back. And we actually got to know each other's person rather than, that superficial thing that you kind of do when you meet somebody. And then you think you love them. And it has held us together through some really, really hard, struggling things on my part. Losing my mother, losing my father, infertility, miscarriages, illness, so many things. Because we actually know each other, we were able to, not always like each other, but always love each other.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I know we're getting closer to the hour, but I think it's very important to just add something onto Suzanne's story, if I may, real quick.
Yeah.
Instead of mine being when I was young, I waited till I was 40 to find somebody and get married because I was knowing who I was. And by the time he came into my life, I did know who I was. I did know my self-love. I did have those kinds of questions and conversations. Sadly, our relationship, what I want to tell everyone, and I think this is important, I love the person, still love them, want the best for them, wish them the best, but not everyone is opening their doors to their souls right now, to their spirit and who they truly are. And what I saw and was presented was somebody who had done that work on themselves as well and had realized their life from their previous marriage of 25 years, their issues, and then their long-term relationship of 7 years after that. And I was like, oh, well, this person knows where they're at. And I wasn't the breadwinner either. I'm building my business. I'm the entrepreneur and everything else. But it was said, well, those things don't matter. And I was like, wow, this is really somebody that it's all right here. And I'm not here to try to talk bad about him, me, or anything that happened. I'm saying in my life, I was at that. I had grown, prepared, ready. I had been engaged prior and it didn't work out because of that person's family's insecurities and everything else. And I was like, okay, well, God, thank you. Everything works for a reason, right? And so I was like, oh, okay, this is really here. And the one thing I just want to say is, when it comes that way, you're not fooled. Don't ever feel bad that it happens early, later in life. What happened is going to happen always, and it's always for the highest good and the highest purpose. And each one of us can really stand in our strength. I really did know who I was. I knew my soul and everything, but not everyone is always opening up their soul or their hearts in the way we think they are or that they're ready to. And sometimes, and right now with all these shifts going on, energetic shifts, people are opening up, but then the shadows come back in and they close back down. And we have to honor that. We do deserve to honor that, man or woman out there, any of you guys who are going through relationships. If you notice somebody's backtracking, regressing, don't get angry at them. Don't get upset about them. Just give them love. And if it's not going to work out and you're going to separate with peace and love, because we're all on this human journey and we all are entitled to free will, even though it might hurt like the Dickens. It might hurt like crazy and you might feel like the bee stings don't ever stop. It's okay, because just like you get a snake virus or something, you start to get the antibodies to it. And then for later in life, you're going to be successful and healthy and everything else going on in life and forward. So just don't be so judgmental and just go with peace and love. And remember, it's all for the highest good, the highest purpose and growth. And even though it might sting in the moment, find your support system and just realize you have done your work. But if somebody else chooses not to, man or woman, then that's their choice, right? They just choose not to grow. And it's okay for each one of us to move forward. It's okay for us to start new journeys because we will be rewarded. Just like Suzanne and Lynda are talking about it, and we will be rewarded, and everything we give unconditionally out there will be received back, even if it's not directly from that person or from work or whatever it might be. It always comes back. So keep on out there, keep strong.
That's awesome. I love what you said. Everything everything works for a reason. Like everything's going to
Mhm.
work itself out for the reason it works itself out. I kind of want.
Can I
I
talk?
don't want to. Go ahead. We need to wrap up. I don't want to wrap up. Just maybe we can go another few minutes. And then I have a couple things I want to ask you girls.
I'll just mine will be really fast. Just like bouncing off of what Jessica. Bouncing off of what Jessica said is, people come into our lives, they say, for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And then, it's sometimes when those people come into your life, just for a reason, it might be really sad to see them go, but just realizing that there was a reason that they were there and embrace that. And I found that very difficult sometimes when I look back and I'm like, so-and-so's missing from my life, and they really made a big impact in my life.
Yeah.
But that's what they were there for, to do, was to make that impact and to move on so that I could move on and I could continue growing.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
I'm interested in what you girls are teaching now. I'm interested in so I'm going to ask you to do two things. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is tell everybody what you do. And I'm going to ask you to, the second part is I'm going to ask you to tell them what they can get, like what they get from you, not like the canned version, not the list, but like really what do they get? And I'd work with any of you girls. You guys are really amazing. And Suzanne, I'm going to ask you to start. Tell everybody what you do and what does somebody get and with work.
Wow. So I'm gonna answer this totally organically, and I'm gonna say I pride myself. My greatest joy is giving someone the confidence to step into who they are supposed to be. And mostly I work with entrepreneurs. So I'm a life coach for entrepreneurs. But I think one of my greatest strengths on the business side of things is that I actually tell people what to do because I was never coached that way. Mm-hmm. So giving them a list of things to do to make their business successful, the steps to take, the technology to use, the words, the scripts, the emails, everything that I did not know when I started. And I think the main thing that I teach people, they come to me because they want a successful business or they want to grow their business, and they leave growing themselves, which grows their business. So they come to me for one reason, they get something totally different than what they were expecting. And within the first 3 sessions, they go, oh, I get it now, what you're doing to me. I totally get it. And I think what they get when you work with me, you get somebody who's totally authentic, might drop the F-bomb once in a while. So if that offends you, please don't call for your appointment. I don't get dressed up. Very, very rarely. Most of the time you'll see me in flip-flops unless I have to go to a corporate client. I'm very real, very approachable. And when people call and they're not sure what they need from me, I say, how about we have an actual coaching conversation? Not today. We're going to schedule that. And I want you to set 90 minutes aside to sit down with me and experience what it's like to be coached by me. And then you decide whether you want more of that. And I typically don't ask people if you want to work with me. At the end of that call, we just kind of finish the call and I send a wrap-up email and I wait. And getting to that place in my coaching business, that place of love, self-acceptance, this is who I am, I don't need to be like anybody else, has made me more successful.
That's cool.
It is kind of cool.
I love it.
And I didn't believe it when somebody told me that, 5 years ago.
That's great. I'm gonna have Lynda go next. Lynda, the little circle on the screen.
Yeah, sorry, it's circle because it's pitch black out here now.
Yeah, that's okay.
So the questions were.
So what do you teach? Like what do you do? Like for
Yeah,
people?
it's an interesting time to be asking me that question, Martine, because I just recently went back to the corporate world. So I had been an entrepreneur for 5 years and found that I wasn't successful in it. And a lot of that was because I was trying to figure my way through it, trying to figure out who I am. Throughout that time, figuring out who I am while also trying to figure out a business. So I tried so many different things and just wasn't successful financially. So it came to the point where I just finally gave in. And I say gave in because I did. I gave in, I caved. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go back to a job. And so I did. But you know what? There's a tremendous financial relief that happened the day I made that decision to go back to a job. So what am I doing now is I'm working a full-time job, but as you might see from my name right here on the screen, Lynda Chocolate Fest. I did a chocolate festival in 2016, my first ever, and we had 3,500 people in attendance. So it was like, whoa, I can do this. What I do best is I bring people together. And I bring them together into an environment where they really enjoy themselves, have a great time, just make great friendships. And so I do a bunch of different kinds of events. Martine and I do an event called Thrive Talks that we're going to be doing again sometime this year when they lift this pandemic and stuff like that. But I love putting on events. I've been doing it for decades, raising money for charity, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for charity on my own. And so what I bring to the table is, I think is the thing I hear the most common is that I just love how you bring people together. And you bring together the like-minded people into the same area, like you bring them together. And because of that, amazing relationships are formed. And I look and I see all these relationships being formed that I'm not in those relationships. It's kind of an interesting because I'm more like the observer. I'm not the one in those relationships, but I brought them together. I was the connector piece. And now I see them thriving and flourishing because I said, I love to bring people together. And so it's so amazing. I'm so grateful that I got to the point that I realized that that's what I do.
And I just want to acknowledge you for
so
your honesty,
good
because
And I'm like, that's awesome.
what I hear is that there's very, very few people that will say what you said, like how you started everything. And you didn't say this, but like I started a business and it didn't work.
I failed.
The courage that it takes to say that. Lynda, I've always known you to have such courage in what you say and such vulnerability and such humility. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And, thank you so much. And that comes from that 5-year-old girl that ran away. I was gone for a whole week. I was so brave and strong when I did that. And when I came home, I was sheltered. I just hid myself. And then it's coming back to that, remembering that sometimes I have to remind myself of that 5-year-old and say, you are strong. You are brave. You got this. Go out there and do it. And then awesome. I go out and do it, Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica, your turn.
Well, yeah. So, like these amazing women, I work with so many beautiful souls out there, and I work with people on an individual basis or group basis or speaking at events as well to inspire others to find their own personal self-worth of knowing how to allow and accept, because if we don't allow things in our life, we are forbidding and denying it. So I work more, of course, as we said, I'm a physician, but I decided not to practice traditional Western medicine, but I am a medical medium, psychic, intuitive. I'm an international multidimensional healer. So I work in many different dimensions because we're not just right here in this 3D world. We're in multi-dimensional world. And I work with them with their physical body, emotional body, spiritual body, ethereal body, all that we are and all that we encompass. And whether it be past life regressions, whether it be medium readings as well with loved ones who have passed on, I incorporate it all, shamanism, being a Reiki master. I incorporate so many different modalities into what I do and bilocate. So I do a lot of long distance healing, and I can feel what's going on in your body, where I'm at, and I can feel somebody's back. And if you noticed, I was just kind of tweaking it out right at the end.
Itching my back. I'm just itching my back. My back.
I mean, like, I feel what's going on in other people's
Get out of my
bodies.
body. Get out of there.
Get out of there.
but it's real. It's all real. And more so, I love assisting others in finding their spiritual gifts, their self-worth, everything that they are, and how to heal themselves, how to take them on a DNA healing journey within, spiritually, emotionally, physically as well, and find their gifts. I don't just want to give you the fish and say, here's your meal, here's where it is, and here I already cooked it for you. I want to teach you how to fish, gut the fish, not just teach you how to cook it one way. Let's teach you how to cook it multiple ways so you can open up your own kitchen. So let's teach you all the side dishes and everything else, and let's teach you how to embrace it so you can have this tasty, savory life in all aspects, whether it be finances, love, everything else, past life trauma, PTSD. I deal with so many people with PTSD. If people want to go to enlightencircles.com, if they want to go to enlightencircles.com, I am just like Suzanne. I do a free session with everybody who wants to the first time. And I think that's only the right thing to do, because you can figure out if you resonate with us and if it's something you really want to do and invest your time and money in. And are you ready? As well as, are we supposed to be working with you? Because we're not supposed to work with everybody, and not everyone resonates with all of us. So I want it to be a two-way street, because when you're ready, you're truly ready to have a complete transformation in everything you do. And I take you through understanding your soul language, understanding your gifts, and healing everything else. Some people I've seen cancer heal, I've seen other things heal, but other people I've seen them not heal physically, but their soul heals. And they've completed things, just like Suzanne was saying, being able to speak to your mother or your father, even if it's past life that they already passed on, to release those bonds, those cords, and tie up all their soul of everything that they deserve to do to be in this happy place before they pass on. It's so beautiful and it's so peaceful, and all of us deserve that. So that's a little bit of a format of the way I work with people, but the best way is to ask others as well, or like we said, contact us all. And I love that Lynda connects people, because I love to collaborate. That's one of the things in Enlightened Circles, is not to just be about me. Like, it's so that we can all work together, because that's where we're at in this world in this time. It's not about one or the other. It's about all of us conjunctively coming together and collaborating to make it the best for each soul. And that's what I loved about this group and this call. I was like, yay!
Yeah.
I know, it's so fun when you actually meet and know other people who are actually your people, and that you could work with them, and there's no lack mindset, and there's no competition. There's no, like, I'm excited to share this with my prospective clients, my Facebook group, my followers, because each of your messages is so important for people. And I think that's the missing piece with entrepreneurship that's shifting. And we have the power to shift that, because when you really know, like, and trust yourself, then other people can know, like, and trust you. And you only want those people as clients. And if they're meant to work with Jessica, then they're not meant to work with me. Or maybe they're meant to work with her first, and then we put on an event with Lynda, and then they're ready to work with me. Right? Like, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. There's this thing that I notice people talk about. They talk about they believe in God or they trust God, and they do, but then their actions are not correlate with that. They're not like, oh, well, if you did, why would you say that? With what I'm trying to do here is be consistent with the curiosity theory, which is like, really be curious. I had no idea what we were going to talk about. I said, here's a kind of 4 things I'm going to try to talk about, and I don't know if we hit them or not. I have to go back and listen. What I do know is the experience that I have, which is more important than the questions or the conversations, is the experience we have in life. I'm more interested in the experience of life, and I just trust whatever was said will make a difference for people, whoever need to hear it. And I just want to thank you, all 3 of you, for graciously spending your time with me, being so vulnerable, being so humble, and just being so honest and giving of yourselves. And I hope that people get that message, whatever you are here for, because you truly are exceptional at what you guys bring to this world. And I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martine.
I'm going to
Thanks for
say
having us. Everyone that's
Absolutely.
listening and sharing their energy, because it's all of us.
Yeah.
I'm going to
We wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for everyone else too.
Absolutely. Hang out in the back room. I'm going to say a couple final words and I'll be right back. Say goodbye to you girls.
Okay.
Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with us. You know, I usually try to end it up in an hour, but it was just so amazing and so powerful that I just wanted to keep going. There was a lot of cool things that were said tonight. And like I said just a second ago, I'm going to have to go back and digest it. I'm going to go back and listen and because I know there was stuff for me, but to understand and not but anything, and to understand perspectives from other people, you know, men understanding more of women's perspectives, men understanding, you know, more women, you know, the other side, you know, and then that goes to like how people can understand each other's cultures, how people can have conversations and simply get along and contribute without having to, like what Suzanne said, having to get something out of it, or having to be, have that scarcity conversation. Like, I got to get a client out of this, or I got to get something, but just to trust that what you have is going to be plenty, and what you have to give, that, you know, maybe it'll come around, maybe it won't. But we don't know if we're going to breathe again, but we simply do. So the kind of my thought about it is that I just trust that I will breathe again, and I'll breathe again tomorrow morning. And if that doesn't happen, that doesn't happen. But for the moment, that's what I'm going to count on. And what you can do is you can count on me to be here next week. And I would love for you to connect with Suzanne, Lynda, and Jessica, to get connected with them and find out more about them. I've had that pleasure and the privilege of doing that. And I know they can make a big difference for your life. So thank you guys for hanging out, and God bless you. And look forward to talking to you and seeing you guys soon. Take care.